Hello everyone and welcome to Climate Opportunities, Finding Your Path Through the Climate Movement. My name is Matt Scott and I'm the Manager of Storytelling and Engagement at Project Drawdown, and in this panel you'll hear from a number of exciting guests about how you could engage with the climate movement and take action. First and foremost will be Fernanda Matsuoka, who is the co-founder and COO of Youth Climate Leaders, and she'll be talking about how their organization is working to engage young people in climate-ready careers. Next will be my interview with Bill Wiehl, who is the founder and executive director of Climate Voice, all about supporting employees and advocating within their organizations and pushing sustainability measures forward. After the conversation with Bill Wiehl will be Elizabeth Bagley, the director of Drawdown Learn, in conversation with Evan Hynes, who is the founder of Climate Base, an organization really focused on equipping the world with resources to take action against climate change. And finally, you'll hear from Jackie Francis and from Vivian Saxon from the Keeling Curve Prize, which awards $250,000 annually to 10 organizations working to surface climate solutions. I hope that you enjoy the panel, and thank you for tuning in.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you also to Project Drawdown for the invite. I wanted to start introducing myself. My name is Fernanda Matsuoka. I am originally from Brazil, but I am based in Nice in the French Riviera. It is a pleasure to be here with you guys today to talk a little bit more about the journey of youth climate leaders. YCL, it is a youth-focused organization dedicated to help young people land jobs in climate change. We do understand that employment and the climate crisis are the two most important threats against youth right now, and our idea is to multi-solving problem that is ahead of us. Right now, YCL happens to be quite big. We have been existing for about 3 years now, and so far we have already 350 YCL fellows. We are also supported by 50 YCL mentors and 100 partners around the world. Our fellows are spread in 20 plus countries, but the majority of them are based in Latin America, where we are from, because we happen to be formed by 4 Brazilian women. The 4 of us have, even the fact that we are in 4 different pictures in this slide is because we have never been physically together. As you can see, we come from different professional backgrounds. We do not come from the same city even, but the 4 of us has, of course, the fact that we're women, that we're Brazilian, but also that we were really frustrated with the difficulties of landing a job in climate change, in sustainability, actually, or what we're trying to say, a job with a positive impact to the world. That it's not an easy thing to do. There are, of course, as soon as you leave your college, as soon as you go into the market to hunt for a job, they are going to ask you for impossible abilities that you can get as a young person. So we want to accelerate and build this bridge between jobs and young people. And this is something that I definitely am really excited to do it, because as we can see from the latest report that was issued by the International Labour Organization, 15 million net jobs can be unleashed if we start the transition to a decarbonized society. And this is only by 2030. And we know about the importance of that because in Latin America specifically, we are facing immense social crisis due to unemployment and due to our difficulties in making the transition due to our social inequalities. So our response for climate action is to accelerate 1 million young climate careers. And especially after seeing the report from the International Labour Organization, this not only seems to be feasible, but also necessary. And how we do that? So we have 3 main pillars to achieve that. The first one is to equipping young people with knowledge and leadership skills on an effective and quick way. And why that? Because we know that these are the 2 most important pillars for a young person to even consider a career in climate. Focus on, of course, the knowledge of climate, which is essential, but leadership is mostly because climate is a really multidisciplinary field, and there is, of course, there's not a clear map in order to achieve that. So we wanted to help our young fellows to get a leadership skill so they can lead their careers. and also to use them to deal with this multidisciplinary field that it is climate. And we do this on really different shapes and sizes. So we have our 8-week online course. We have our immersions, that is our journeys, international immersions. We have also the climate pods, which are initiatives done online, which helps young people to help them shape their storytelling in climate. And of course, YCL labs and workshops. After they get the knowledge and the leadership skills, we connect them with themselves, and the idea is also to help them to foster projects in the field. We wanted them to start to concretely doing things, because we believe that doing things is the best way to address not only climate anxiety, but also to get their experience to help them land in a job in climate change, because one of the main important gaps for them to land to a job. In order to do that, we have 12 hubs spread in Brazil, US, Portugal, and Italy, with the main objective of gathering people locally to have a positive impact at place, which is the most effective way to make climate action themselves. Understanding also that climate change is a really difficult, academically speaking, because the information is always updating. We have study groups, not only so they can learn about new things, but also get updated. And most importantly, we have mentors, because our main mission is also to build what we call this intergenerational bridge between specialists that has the network and also the connections and the experience that can really benefit our mentees. And we're developing a project in order to continue to do that. But of course, none of this is more important than actually getting a job in the field, which is why we create an ecosystem to engage them in the field to get closer to these job offers. We have delegations to global events. We have also the YCL opportunities page, where we are constantly updating them with job opportunities in climate change. But most importantly, our latest project, the Day of the Climate Professional, to nurture and really to celebrate the climate professionals and pretty much demystify the humans that are behind this climate transition, which is something that we're really proud of. And we hope to get one of you guys to join us, or all of you, for our next opportunity next year. And our achievements that made us really proud so far, we have tons of figures, but I thought that in order to bring it up a little bit closer to the impact that we're creating into the world, it is definitely bringing our fellows as the concrete examples of that. The first one that I want to share is Amanda Costa. She received one of our scholarships, which is something that we have been doing from day one. We provide scholarships to 40% of our participants. And this allows us to always have a cohort that is diverse, culturally inclusive. It's something that is impacting on our group studies, because we have group studies in racism and gender, also the mothers of climate, which was something that was really cool. But back to Amanda, once she joined our scholarship, she started to engage in writing and also to communicating about climate change. Nowadays, she's not only our network mobilizer, but she is also an ambassador for the UN in Brazil. And also other international examples, because we also happen to be really fast and efficient. Even though our courses are super duper short, the network proves to be effectively, because 50% of the participants that were unemployed at the time that they joined YCL, they got a job in climate change in less than 1 year after completing the course. So one example that I want to bring to you guys today is Manoj. Manoj came all the way from India to join our immersion in Germany. And as soon as he gathered his first international experience, he had never left India before. He came back to India, and an agroforestry company based in the Netherlands got really interested. He ended up getting a job in the agroforestry company, which was his dream job, because he worked in agroforestry only as volunteer, and now he has a full-time paid job. Michelle Hernandez is originally from New York. She joined our first cohort in 2018 in Paris in Kenya. After that, she joined a field placement in Wiehl Carbon, the low carbon consultancy company in Brazil. And from there, she went all the way to a delegation to COP24. After that, she came back, and in March 2019, she joined the AOC team, which showed a great impact of our work, where people that had just graduated from school can quickly get climate experience that can land them to a dream job. So I wanted to invite you all to support YCL. There are many ways that you can help us, because we have this beautiful ecosystem with many different ways for you to join forces with us. So if if you have a climate opportunity, if you have a project or a field placement, send us these opportunities because we're sharing them on a constant basis with our network. You can also sponsor scholarships for vulnerable leaders. 40% of our participants are sponsored by either us or our partners, and you can be one of them. You can sponsor a YCL hub, can get younger to help you in your project locally. You can also become a YCL mentor to our fellows. It is a beautiful experience for both sides. Our mentors actually have been asking for what we are calling the reverse mentorship. They are scheduling conversations with our fellows because they want to get career recommendations for younger fellows. You can also become a YCL donator because, as I said, we aim to accelerate 1 million careers. We have an ambitious scaling plan, and we are welcoming YCL donors that can help us to take this a step further. You can contact us also to hire a YCLer. If you're looking for a young talent with a great formation and also really action driven. And last but not least, you can hire YCL services. We have more than 350 talents. We have also the mentors. We are organizing ourselves to become a youth focused coalition of consultancy to climate change. So you're more than welcome to contact us. We have organized over 40 projects so far. So in all shapes and sizes, really effective and really youth-led. If you want to contact us for any of these projects. Thank you so much again. Everybody is more than welcome to contact and reach me if you have any doubts. Again, Latin America more specifically, where we are acting more strongly, is heavily dependent on the voices from developed countries where you guys are based. So please help us supporting and defending these resources that are in our territories. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Scott, and I am the manager of storytelling and engagement at Project Drawdown. And right now, for this Climate Opportunities panel, I am joined by none other than Bill Wiehl, who's the founder and executive director of Climate Voice. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's a beautiful day here out in California.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. And just as we get started, I would love if you could introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. So my name is Bill Wiehl. I led sustainability and climate and clean energy work at Google and then at Facebook for a number of years. I'm now executive director of Climate Voice, a new nonprofit that I launched with a number of other people earlier this year. We're focused on getting companies to really step up on climate, to, as we put it, go all in on climate in everything they do.
Mm-hmm. But what role do climate solutions play in this work? I could imagine, but I'd love to hear from you just what role they play in the conversation with the companies that you're working with.
I think, and this is partly the message of Drawdown. It might have been that 10 or 20 years ago, we could have focused on one or two pathways to solve the climate problem. Today, it's pretty clear we kind of need them all. That doesn't mean they're all the same priority and deserve the same emphasis, but companies, they have a direct impact on the planet through their own operations. They consume energy, whether it's in buildings or factories or data centers or fleets of vehicles. Their employees commute, they produce products that then people buy, and the manufacturing of those consumes energy and produces emissions and so on. And the use of those products also has an impact. And so they can have a direct impact on climate solutions by looking at where they are having an impact, a negative impact on the environment, on climate, and what they can do to reduce that. You see lots and lots of companies setting net zero or carbon negative goals even in the last several years. And so that I think is the most obvious place. But when we say all in, we mean across everything companies do. So not just that kind of thing, their operations, their products, their supply chain, but also big companies certainly have. Some of them have lots of money. They invest that money. What are they investing it in? Yeah. Big companies, but small ones too, but especially big ones, have large public policy organizations that lobby the government on public policy. And they can lobby on climate and make a big difference on public policy. And that actually is where we see the biggest gap today among companies, is that even the leading companies that are doing lots in their own operations on climate are mostly silent on public policy. And we need public policy to guide the whole market rapidly in the direction we need to go.
Yeah, and one of the 7 accelerators at Project Drawdown is just this idea of altering rules and policy. And as you know, and as I know, and as many watching will know from this session, there is a lot, there's a lot of power that companies have. But one thing I'm wondering, in thinking about just those who don't get on board, for those who don't understand the role that companies can play, what is it that you think that they're missing, or you know, what is it that they're missing about the scale of the current problem?
It's almost, I think for a lot of people, even some days for me, it's kind of hard to imagine how massive this problem is. We have to cut, if we want to keep warming below 1.5 degrees C, to have a decent chance of that, we have to cut emissions essentially in half by 2030 and to net zero by 2050. And that means, when I say net zero, that means mostly actually eliminating emissions with a small contribution from what you might think of as offsets or carbon negative technologies or solutions. Most of it has to come from eliminating the things that are emitting, because there's no way we will scale the carbon negative stuff to be a solution all by themselves. It's one pathway. We need all the others. We need zero emissions transportation, zero emissions buildings, and so on. So that's a massive problem. We have to build and deploy massive amounts of infrastructure. And it's not so much that it's all new infrastructure that we otherwise wouldn't have to build. It's really about what kind of infrastructure. As Saul Griffith has put it, you know, he's a brilliant MacArthur fellow, you know, MacArthur genius, who's one of the most innovative people I know and one of the smartest people I know. He's got a new project called Rewiring America, and that metaphor is apt. We have to rewire our economy, and actually the rest of the world too. Companies will do most of that work, but we need public policy to, and we're going to deploy lots of infrastructure and spend lots of money. The question is, do we spend that money and deploy infrastructure that is high carbon infrastructure? Or do we focus rapidly over the next several years on shifting that spending so that it goes into the infrastructure we need for the zero carbon world we need to build? And companies are going to do most of that work and spend most of that money. They're going to spend that money anyway. The question is, what do they spend it on?
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned that I think is really interesting. So you talk about the scale of the problem and of just what we're dealing with when it comes to climate change and climate solutions. But I think of advocacy just being a full-time job for a lot of people. So I imagine an employee having their formal role, but then also taking this on as something that they want to push. And so one thing I wonder from you, what's the primary incentive that you've seen or experienced for employees to engage in pushing their companies and holding their companies accountable?
What we found with now thousands of people who are engaged with us is that they care deeply about climate. They are worried about their future and the future for billions of other people around the world. And they want to see solutions, they want to see change. And when they understand the opportunity to get their employer more engaged in climate and to get their employer to use its influence, and companies have lots of influence in our political system, they see that actually as a way, it feels empowering. So for people who care about climate, it's very empowering to realize, well, I can vote, but maybe in our political system, given gerrymandering and the structure of the Senate and all sorts of other things, your vote doesn't change what's happening nationally or in states other than the one where you live on climate. So voting's important, but it's not enough. And one of the reasons it's not enough is that there are companies that have massive influence that are using it to slow progress on climate. And people don't like to talk about like who, you know, let's not call them bad guys or bad actors. They are acting badly, right?
Right.
The fossil fuel companies now for decades have been stalling, delaying progress on climate through their massive influence in our political process. And most other companies are sitting on the sidelines silent most of the time, which means the fossil fuel companies are the dominant business voice and they have a lot of power and influence. It has an impact. And when people understand that, it feels very empowering to realize I can band together with fellow employees and with students who my company might want to hire next year who care about this and convince my company to speak up and actually have an impact on changing public policy. And this has been happening, you know, across the US and states in a number of states where we've seen real progress. I think it can happen at the national level if companies are willing to really step up, and we're seeing some beginning to, but they need to be pushed.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that makes me hopeful, and I know it's something that you've talked about before, is just the thinking about the LGBTQ plus rights movement and just how corporate America and corporations in general have really moved more and more to adopt. And just to kind of point out something that I know you've mentioned, there is one approach which is addressing the issues within your organization, and another that's companies stepping up to advocate more broadly, which is what we want with climate change and climate solutions. And so I wonder from you, just where does an employee begin? Because we know it's possible that change could happen, but like, where do they begin to take those steps, and even more, what resources does Climate Voice provide to help them take those steps?
Right. Well, the first thing to do is just to understand you have a voice, you have power, and you can use your voice. And in fact, if you continue to stay silent, you're contributing to the problem. Your company's silence is not neutrality in this, what has been a very messy, contentious political issue. It's complicity with the powerful voices on the other side. Because the political balance of power is completely out of whack. So when those who want to see progress are silent, they're letting those who don't want to see progress win. And so when you stay silent, you're at some level being complicit too. But understanding that you have power, and so just sitting with that for a minute and realizing it is empowering. You can have an impact, and you take the LGBT rights example. When I was at Facebook has a big data center in North Carolina. I live in California. I can't vote in North Carolina. In spite of all the stuff we hear about election fraud, I don't and can't vote in North Carolina. So I can't directly influence their policy. But when they passed a discriminatory piece of legislation, what's been colloquially called their bathroom bill in 2016, Facebook lobbied against it. It passed. And then a whole bunch of employees stood up and said to Facebook, and this happened in dozens of other companies, said, we're really not happy with this. We've got a big presence there. We want our company to put its foot down and really push the state. And they did. And I live in California. So you can have an impact in places not just where you live and vote. That's really empowering. Second thing, add your voice to thousands of others. So go to climatevoice.org and sign the Climate Voice Pledge, basically saying you want to work for a company that is all in on climate. You know, when you can, you're going to choose to work for a company that is leading really as far in on climate as you can find. And you're going to push your company once you're there to get better. Second, talk to your peers. Find allies, because I can guarantee you there are other employees who feel the same, who want to see more progress, see their company do more. And then talk to managers, talk to higher level executives. We have resources at climatevoice.org. There's a resources tab. We have resources with ideas of how you can have those conversations so they're constructive So it's not you going and wagging your finger and saying, you know, you guys suck, but it's here's why I care, and here's how we as a company can have an impact and why it's important for the company and for all of our stakeholders. It's almost certainly different in different companies based on the size. You know, bigger companies, it can feel a little like, who do I find who could actually have an impact on this or have any decision-making authority? And based on internal culture, some companies are more open to internal challenge and debate than others. So you have to kind of calibrate what you're doing, how you're doing it to your company. In some ways, it's easier, I think, in a small company. Bigger companies by themselves have more influence, but small companies can band together with other small companies and influence things out.
Bill, thanks so much for this interview and for your insight and what you've shared. And I think there's a lot that employees and companies could take away from hearing this. But I know that before this interview, you mentioned the 350 Bay Area Sustainability Playbook for Business. And I just want to give you a chance to mention that, as well as just close out this interview with any words you want to share with the audience who's watching.
Sure. Well, great. Thanks, Matt. So there are lots of things employees can do. And I think, as I said at the beginning, it's not about one pathway. It's about, we kind of need all the pathways. And that partly means that a company and a person can't just say, well, I'm going to pick this one thing to do, and that's all I'm going to do, because we kind of all need to do everything. That's partly why we need public policy to kind of gently guide the whole market. And for companies, it's not, you know, buy clean energy and stop. It's a whole bunch of different things. So there's actually a great playbook or guidebook that folks at 350 Bay Area put together recently for businesses. And it's aimed at employees to help their companies get better, be more sustainable. So it's called the 350 Bay Area Sustainability Playbook for Business. It's got a whole bunch of things employees can do, ask their companies to do, help their companies do to be more sustainable. And one of the most important, as I said, is get your company to stand up and speak up on public policy in the city where it operates, especially if it's a small company. It can have real influence locally, in the county, in the state, and nationally, and do that in every jurisdiction it operates in. So every city, county, state, every country, if it operates in more than the US, and lend its voice to this growing chorus of people around the world calling for much more aggressive action on climate.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our conversation about climate opportunities. My name is Elizabeth Bagley, and I am the director of Drawdown Learn at Project Drawdown. And we know that the climate crisis really requires systemic structural changes across our global society and economy. And it's going to take a whole ecosystem of actors to create the great transformation that that's required. And we all have an opening and an obligation to step in and step up as problem solvers and change agents and contribute in significant ways, even when we feel small. And it is my pleasure today to introduce you to one of those change agents. Evan, it's so good to have you here. I would love for you to tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm really excited to be here. And I'm also particularly honored because, the work that Project Drawdown has done is really the work that inspired me to get involved in climate personally. So a little bit about my background, I sort of cut my teeth in the corporate world. I then got lucky and got to join this really amazing education startup here in the Bay Area. And after 3 years of working at this company that was really focused on creating a new educational model for computer science, I found myself in a position where I had the freedom of thinking about what do I want to do next. And around this time, it was a couple months after the 2018 IPCC report had come out, the report that I think we sort of, saw catapult this latest wave of climate action and concern globally. And so for me at that time, thinking about, what do I want to do next with my career? and looking at the problems in the world and thinking, where do I want to apply myself? The answer for me was obvious. It was work on climate, get involved and find an organization where I can make myself useful in this challenge to reverse global warming. And I just didn't really know where to start. I think I was doing what a lot of people are perhaps still doing, which is going to the big jobs platforms and typing in the keyword climate and seeing what was out there. Unfortunately, what I was finding is that all the job opportunities when I ran that search were basically just job opportunities that had that keyword climate in it. So for me, as someone with a background in technology startups and education, it felt frustrating. I'm not a climate scientist. I'm not a climate reporter, and the job opportunities I was finding just weren't relevant to me. Around this time, I got introduced to the work of Project Drawdown, and I was actually visiting my friend up and at his ranch. He works on a regenerative ranching project, and I'm sitting in his trailer, and he hands me this book, and he's like, "Hey, Evan, I think you should look at this." And I start flipping through the pages, and it's the book Drawdown. And immediately I'm just like, I need to know every organization that's working on these solutions, and I want to know who's hiring. And that's sort of the light bulb moment for me, because I figured that, gosh, if I could build something that helps answer that question, this might be something that is useful to others as well. And that's really the story of how I got going into my path on climate.
Oh my gosh, Evan, I love hearing kind of your origin story and the motivation for why you built what you built. And we'll get to that in a second, but I just want folks to know that, there are opportunities for all of us to step up and step in to work on climate solutions. And they might not have climate in the title, like you found out, Evan. And it might take a little while for us to find it, to find where our gifts are best suited for working on climate solutions in this on this incredible planet. But the opportunities are there, and there are people like Evan, founder of Climate Base, who are really trying to help us find our way. So Evan, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what you do with Climate Base. Who are you? Who's your audience? What's your mission? Like, what are you, what is that problem that you're solving with Climate Base in the world?
Climate Base is a platform for climate employment. And at a high level, what we're really working on is getting a lot of people working on climate really quickly. So to do that at scale, we answer three key questions. One is, what are the organizations that are out there in the world that are focused on climate change? Then second question is, and what roles, what positions, jobs are these organizations looking to fill? And then we list these organizations and these jobs on Climate Base and allow anyone to freely browse all of that. But then the third question is kind of the opposite, which is, who out there wants to work on climate? And to answer that question, we've opened up a community directory where you could list yourself as someone who wants to or currently is working on climate change. And so in that sense, Climate Based, you can almost think about us as being like a LinkedIn for climate, where you can discover the jobs, organizations, and the individuals that are working on addressing climate change. One of the best ways that people can really make a personal impact is actually by working like full-time or part-time or in a voluntary capacity, but actually working to support these organizations and really to support climate solutions. There's a lot of talk of what we can do as individuals to change our consumption or sort of our consumer behaviors. And while I think all of this is important, I think that there is a sort of an opportunity that goes that isn't really discussed as much, which is, what does the world look like when our best and brightest are actually working at the organizations and advancing climate solutions? And that's the world that I want to work towards.
Thanks for working to create it. So when I go and visit Climate Base, tell me a little bit about what I'm going to find there. What are some of the resources that you have for people to really step into those climate opportunities?
The way that we think about what a climate job is any job at any organization that's working on climate. And so the kind of jobs and opportunities that you can find on Climate Base are kind of across the board. I mean, we don't focus on any particular skill set. We don't focus on any particular role type. We believe, again, that everyone has a role to play. I'm just trying to think of an organization, perhaps like our own organization at Climate Base. In fact, we use our own platform for hiring. We recently posted a job for a full stack software engineer, right? And so you can expect to see lots of those kinds of roles, technical, non-technical roles, everything from like in-house legal professional to an HR manager, to a more of a hard science kind of role. So it's a really it's a really broad sort of list of opportunities. But what sort of ties them all together is that they're all at organizations that are focused on climate solutions.
Thank you so much for doing the hard work of aggregating those. And I think one huge win for people just visiting Climate Base is being exposed to and introduced to potentially new organizations they might not have heard from before, which I think is really useful in this ever evolving landscape of climate solutionists. So Evan, I wonder what's next on the horizon? Like, what are you looking towards with Climate Base, and how are you growing and evolving the organization?
Well, we have some really exciting things on the horizon. So I'm happy you're asking. In fact, I think by the time that this conversation is happening during the conference, I believe we will have already launched a directory of our users. So a lot of people have asked us what our sort of next phase as a product looks like. We recognize that the people in the climate world, which is a funny thing to say because I feel like everyone is in the climate world, whether they know it or not. But the people on our platform, at least, want to connect with each other. And we also believe that for the organizations, the thousands of organizations that use our platform for finding mission-driven talent, it's important for them to be able to freely sort of look through the directory of individuals who are using our platform and are perhaps looking for opportunities. So what's next is that it'll be a directory of our users. And I'm happy to say that, even before launching this, we've already seen over 12,000 individuals create profiles on our platform. And so we're really excited to get that up and launched. But there's another really exciting initiative that I'm happy to share, which is that we are sort of stepping into something that is a little bit outside of our product, perhaps, which is that we have this new program called the Climate Base Fellowship. And it's our first step into climate education, but not a traditional sort of climate education program, one that is instead much more focused on sort of applied climate solutions, and helping it's a selective program, but we're really taking a cohort of sort of the top talent from our community, and helping them get introduced to the organizations and the leaders of those organizations that you see hiring on our platform. So it's it's kind of like I would say a relatively new model for education, something that we've seen becoming really popularized ever since COVID hit. And we're hoping that, given that climate conferences are no longer happening in person, and with the recognition that over 70, sometimes over 80% of people get jobs through people that they know, we hope that the Climate Base Fellowship Program can serve to address that opportunity and that gap that we see, and at a time when it's really hard to build new in-person connections. What we're planning to do more long-term is actually partner with others, let's say other experts in the world of climate, and actually create sort of more specific targeted courses for people who are perhaps interested in regenerative agriculture or energy or transportation. So where we see Climate Base going more long-term is almost like a verticalized professional and education platform focused on climate.
You have some incredible next steps, and many next steps, Evan. I'm really excited to see how things continue to grow and evolve at Climate Base. I'd love to hear. So one of the things that you mentioned is people can sign up. They can sign up on Climate Base. What are some other next steps you'd like people to do to connect with Climate Base and the great work you're doing?
Something that we would encourage folks to do is, even if you're not looking for a climate job, or even if you're not at an organization that is, hiring, we would encourage you to still join our network. In many ways, you can think of Climate Base as like the LinkedIn for climate. And we want to grow this platform. And, with any kind of platform where community is really at the core of the work we're doing, it's all about bringing great mission-driven, talented, intelligent people into our platform. And of course, everything we do as a product, all of this is free, fundamentally. So, we are welcoming folks to join us in this journey, and what that looks like is as simple as creating a profile, because we're hoping that Climate Base can be a platform through which serendipitous connections can be made at a time when I think a lot of us are, especially now again due to COVID, finding it difficult to forge new connections with mission-aligned people. So we're hoping to be an online resource for that.
I just really appreciate the kind of the importance and your focus on connecting people to each other, connecting people to opportunities in the climate space, and connecting organizations to people who are passionate about and really want to be working on climate solutions. Evan, thank you so much for sharing your passion, for sharing your life's work with us for the conference. I think people will be really grateful to know more about Climate Base and check it out and plug in. Any last thoughts that you want to share with the people at the conference?
I'm really inspired by the concept of ikigai. And if it's a Japanese concept that I was introduced to through a former colleague of mine. And the term ikigai most directly translates to reason for being, or perhaps reason for waking up in the morning. And actually, it's this concept is directly mirrored in our logo, in fact, on Climate Base. And it's the intersection of four key areas. Imagine a Venn diagram. One being, what do you like doing? The other one being, what are you good at doing? A third being, what can you get paid to do? And a fourth being, what does the world need? And at Climate Base, what we're really hoping to do is help people find their ikigai through working on climate. I know that for me, this has been the most fulfilling work I've ever done. And I think in a lot of ways, I've found my own ikigai through working on Climate Base. But if you're someone watching this and you have a 15-year-old who's freaking out about what the world looks like for them in 30, 40 years, or if you're mid-career or early career yourself, and you're feeling perhaps a little bit of like existential crisis, just know that you're not alone, and know that Climate Base might just be a resource to help you find a purposeful career, and perhaps even your own ikigai.
Thank you, Evan. We are so grateful that you took the time to share your insights and your talents with the world. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Vivian Saxon, and I'm the Communications Director for the Global Warming Mitigation Project. And I'm here today to tell you a little bit more about what we do at the GWMP. The GWMP was founded in 2017 in Aspen, Colorado to meet the challenges posed by skyrocketing greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. To that end, our director, Jackie Francis, founded our flagship program, the Keeling Curve Prize. The Keeling Curve Prize awards $250,000 annually to 10 projects worldwide dedicated to finding and implementing climate solutions. We have 5 categories and 2 winners in each category that each receive $25,000. And the KCP is unique in the world of climate prizes because of its intense scientific focus. We require all of our applicants to quantify numerically the amount of CO2 that they think their projects are removing from the atmosphere. And that way, we're not really awarding ideas or thoughts. We are really sitting here and awarding projects on the ground that are tangibly, actively pulling down carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. There's a myriad of climate solutions out there that are working, and the GWMP and the KCP are here to amplify, uplift, and support those organizations. And here's a short video to tell you a little bit more about what we do at the KCP.
Humanity, we have a problem. It's not just her problem, or his problem, or the Earth's problem. It's our problem. And if we don't make a change, it's not gonna stop.
So the problem is real. Science backs it. In 1958, Dr. Dave Keeling of Scripps Institution of Oceanography set up an ultra-precise measurement device atop Mauna Loa in Hawaii to record carbon dioxide levels. His measurements of escalating CO2 levels became known as the Keeling curve. Today, we know that carbon dioxide in our oceans and atmosphere has risen continuously since the Industrial Revolution. These greenhouse gases have the ability to keep infrared radiation, or heat, circulating in our atmosphere. Without greenhouse gases, this planet would be as cold as space. Beach vacations would not be the same. So we want some greenhouse gases, but too much of a good thing can turn disastrous, resulting in our problem. So science proves it's happening, but do we have the science and motivation to stop it? That's where we come in. Our mission is to recognize the most promising ideas that either effectively reduce greenhouse gas emissions or increase carbon uptake. We reward leaders with needed financial resources and global visibility so that they can realize their visions. We are not pointing fingers. In fact, to the fossil fuel industry, oil, coal, natural gas, we thank you for creating a high-tech society and all of its advancements. But our knowledge has become greater. So it's time to change the game. It's time for energy evolution. It's time to get on board. If we're all willing to listen to one another, we'll realize that we have a lot of great ideas. So let's all join the party, work together, and rise to the challenge.
So that's the KCP. As you can probably tell, we at the GWMP don't really believe in a silver bullet solution to climate change. We think that addressing this problem is going to take a lot of innovation and a lot of rethinking in pretty much all sectors, in all areas. So that's why we award such a diversity of projects. And to that end, let's meet some of our 2020 laureates, just so you can get a feel for the types of projects around the world that are really fixing and addressing this problem.
Borneo Nature Foundation. In Indonesia, Borneo is home to some of the largest terrestrial carbon stores on the planet, with 12.6 gigatons stored in its peat swamp forests. However, it faces threats from burning, land mismanagement, and drought. The Borneo Nature Foundation is putting out the fires and restoring the carbon-rich peatlands, protecting the land, the communities, and the orangutans. CarbFix. Operating in Iceland, CarbFix is looking to expand to Italy, Turkey, and Germany, but mostly they work in the atmosphere. Or almost. Using a proprietary technology to turn captured carbon dioxide from power plants, industrial processes, and the air into stone.
Jazza is distributing energy in rural Africa. With 60 operational solar energy hubs in Tanzania and offering 10 to 15 new hubs a month, Jazza hopes this financially self-sustaining energy model will prevent 4.8 kilotons of carbon pollution per year and beyond. With a worldwide coalition of over 180,000 people, Citizens Climate trains and mobilizes individuals and communities to advocate for carbon pricing. They are a peaceful army of advocates asking for sensible climate policies.
We are consistently inspired every year as we watch these applications come in. And on that front, our 2021 application cycle is now open, so go check that out and refer it to anybody that you know that you think might qualify for a Keeling Curve Prize. So that's our flagship program. Our next program that we established just this year is called the Sphere, and it is a global network that is linking together all of these people around the world that are working on climate solutions. And there are 3 parts to the Sphere. Initially, there's the troposphere, so it's the lowest layer, and it is all of the hundreds of on-the-ground, worldwide people and projects that are implementing climate solutions. Our second layer, stratosphere, is the funders and the people that are going to be able to look at the troposphere members and help push them to succeed and really give them the funds and the opportunity. And then finally, we have the constellations. And the Constellations Project we developed just this spring in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and watching a bunch of talented students across the country and across the world lose their internship opportunities. And we looked at our sphere and we said, okay, well, we have these hundreds of organizations. Perhaps we can knit something together and provide opportunities for students during this time period. And so we put together this program that we're calling Climate Constellations. And so far we've awarded internship opportunities to over 70 students. And we're going to hear from some of those students about their experiences in the climate constellations.
My name is Oluwaseyi. My friends call me Olu. In this quarter, I interned with Our Climate. I have been working as the national policy intern. So most of my work has been researching various bills, resolution, and memorials that are either currently standing in the House, Senate, as well as specific states.
Hi everyone, I'm Francesca, and my internship was with Climate Justice Now, which is a project that focuses on increasing climate activism. I work with Jill Witt, the author of the Field Manual to Increase Climate Activism. And for my internship, I research, write, edit, and upload articles for a blog entitled One Global Climate Future, publishing 2 about 1,000-word articles each week. My goal is to examine how climate change, the pandemic, and other world issues intersect with business, politics, and social justice, with a particular focus on an international perspective.
It's probably evident by now that we at the GWMP are really optimistic when it comes to addressing the climate crisis. And it's probably because of students and people like our Constellations interns. And we get to see every day their brilliance and their passion and their true deep desire to address this problem. And we also get to see from our Keeling Curve Prize laureates and applicants that there are a myriad, a proliferation of climate solutions that are here and that are present, and we just have to scale them up. And our final program or project that I will introduce to you today is our Vote Climate Initiative, which we developed out of a staff call when we were thinking, okay, how can we really bring climate to the forefront of voters in America this year? And we developed a 30-second PSA message that we shared all across the country, and it had over 1.8 million views by the time of the election. And one thing that we noticed when we were filming this, you'll see that it's directed towards parents and that we use the voices of children and young adults. And we didn't have to prompt these children to talk about the climate crisis because they already knew about it and they already cared about it and they already recognized that we are undergoing a transition, and there is the old economy and there is the green economy, and that is coming, and there are green jobs, there are opportunities, and these kids knew that. And so we barely even had to script them when they were talking in this PSA. So here we are.
Mom.
Hey, Mom. Mama, I had another nightmare about all the fires and hurricanes. Why are there so many?
Mom, I know you want grandkids, but I just don't think I want to bring kids into this world.
Why can't leaders see this?
Mommy, you have the power to protect my future.
Pretty cool, right? Probably recognized a familiar face in that. I hope that you all feel like you've learned a little bit more about the GWMP. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you see an opportunity to collaborate with our Sphere network. And another reminder that the Keeling Curve Prize application period is open until February 10th. And we are also always looking for ways to expand the reach of that prize. We get so many worthy applicants, and we'd love to be able to award them and to give larger prizes, more prizes, to just really do anything we can to address this climate crisis. That said, I am honored to introduce you to Jackie Francis, the founder, director, and visionary behind the Global Warming Mitigation Project.
Hi, thanks for that intro, Vivian, and thanks for explaining what we do at the Global Warming Mitigation Project. Listen, we're all here to explore ways we can be more effective. And when I first started the Global Warming Mitigation Project, one of my first calls was to Project Drawdown. So I want to thank Chad Frischman and Elizabeth for including us in this conference. We were both getting started together. There is no vaccine for the climate crisis, but there are solutions. And these solutions are happening all over the world. There are people acting on these solutions. And one of the things we do at the Keeling Curve Prize is we identify, we analyze, and we activate these wonderful people around the world that are working in this space. Most of you understand the urgency, and that's why you're here. So what do we do about it? Project Drawdown helps us make climate conscious choices, and we all need to include climate decisions in our work, our play, really in our lives everywhere. I encourage you all to find the best ways that you can put those choices into action. People everywhere are working on effective solutions. We really must grow this effort. If you have a drawdown solution, you can apply for the Keeling Curve Prize. Applications are open now. If you want a virtual internship, you can apply. Our spring semester is starting soon. Don't waste another minute. Get busy now. Get involved, get your friends and family involved, and be the climate warriors that we all need to be. Thanks, and thanks for being part of this conference, and enjoy your day.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And that is pretty much it for our program today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to learn more about the Global Warming Mitigation Project and what we're doing from Aspen, Colorado to help solve this climate crisis. And I would be remiss as the communications director to not urge you to go follow us all on social media. It is at KCurve Prize on all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Hit us up, follow along, and stay tuned for what the GWMP has next. Thank you guys so much.